Senate Republicans in the Nevada legislature have introduced a bill that would form a task force to explore fuel options for the state. Senate Republican leader Robin Titus introduced Senate Bill 505 to establish the Nevada Energy Resiliency Task Force. Right now, Nevada relies on California for 88% of its 5 million gallons of daily fuel. The task force will assess economic and health risks and propose solutions, including a new pipeline, expanding imports from Utah's Salt Lake City refineries, and using alternative fuels to stabilize prices and supply.